Billies, wake up Billies. Everybody gotta put the time in. Wake up Billies, wake up Billies. Voice our opinion and place your calling WB. Be yourself, see yourself, this is a show of people. Billies our hope, so to needless reason. Nobody feel left out, is the vibe we dealing. Let's find a solution, yeah, yeah, yeah. Love, respect, unselfishness and cooperation. That's how we need to build a strong nation. We are the people to make the changes. We are the changes, WB. And all the things that will feel happen like dark blue skies. I love it when people get victimized. Let's work together for better, we got to unite. Billies, yeah. Wake up Billies, wake up Billies. Another day is here. Wake up Billies, wake up Billies. We gotta keep moving, na 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 na. Wake up Billies, wake up Billies. Everybody gotta put the time in. Wake up Billies, wake up Billies. Voice our opinion and place your calling WB. Get up, make every day count. Don't waste it, people. Do your part, play a role, get where you need to. You can tune in from work or in your vehicle. If you got a problem, pick up the phone. Why wait? It's a time calling. It's a show with no matter even if you're at home. Just call in, WB. Wake up Billies, wake up Billies. Another day is here. Wake up Billies, wake up Billies. We gotta keep moving, na 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 na. Wake up Billies, wake up Billies. Everybody gotta put the time in. Wake up Billies, wake up Billies. Voice our opinion and place your calling WB. Be yourself, see yourself, this is a show my people. Billies our hope, so to needless reason. Nobody feel left out, is the vibe we dealing. Let's find a solution, yeah, yeah, yeah. Love, respect, unselfishness and cooperation. That's how we need to build a strong nation. We are the people to make the changes. We are the changes, WB. And all the things that will feel happen like dark blue skies. I love it when people get victimized. Let's work together for better, we got to unite. Billies, yeah. Wake up Billies, wake up Billies. Another day is here. Wake up Billies, wake up Billies. We gotta keep moving, na 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 na. Wake up Billies, wake up Billies. Everybody gotta put the time in. Wake up Billies, wake up Billies. Voice our opinion and place your calling WB.
right, welcome. This is WUB, Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. It's a Friday morning. We don't say thank God it's Friday because we are thankful for every day. But it is Friday, the 18th day of October 2024. I'm Nuri Mohammed in the studio, and we welcome you to the program this morning. As you know, we go through certain preliminary steps before we get to the main conversation. We do have a guest coming in this morning, and we will open up the phone lines because we think it will be controversial enough for you to want to weigh in. We won't tell you who the guest will be because sometimes this and that happens and we are embarrassed by announcing a person and then something happens and they can't be here. But we are expecting to have a guest about 7:30 this morning. Our forecaster this morning is Crystal Rosales. She'll give us an update on the weather, and then we'll give you our news prepared by our news center. Stay tuned.
Good morning. A stationary front to the north and a low pressure system approaching from the east continues to support moist and unstable conditions over the area. The 24-hour forecast. Skies will be mostly cloudy, becoming overcast. A few showers, periods of rain, and isolated thunderstorms will occur mostly offshore this morning. Then, by this afternoon and into tonight, activity will increase over the mainland, but especially over northern and coastal areas. Please note that there is a potential for heavy downpour and incessant rainfall activity during the next 24 to 48 hours. Hence, an excessive rainfall watch is in effect. Residents are advised to remain vigilant and continue to monitor the weather situation in their area. High temperatures for today will reach around 82 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 84 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and 74 degrees Fahrenheit in the mountains. Low temperatures for tonight will reach around 72 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 68 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and then 65 degrees Fahrenheit in the hills. Winds over the open sea will be from the north to northwest at 10 to 20 knots, and sea conditions will be choppy. However, operators of small crafts should exercise caution near heavy showers and thunderstorms. High tides occur at 10:49 this morning and then at 10:07 tonight. Low tides at 4:14 this evening and then at 5:26 tomorrow morning. The moon will set at 6:54 this morning and rise at 6:32 this evening. The sun will set at 5:28 this evening and then rise at 5:47 tomorrow morning. The extended forecast. Skies will be overcast. Numerous showers, periods of rain, which may be heavy at times, and thunderstorms will affect the country on Saturday and Saturday night, but especially over northern and central areas. And now for a look at the tropics. Widespread showers and thunderstorms continue across the northwestern Caribbean Sea in association with a broad area of low pressure, which is gradually becoming better defined. This system has a medium chance of development during the next 48 hours. However, a short-lived tropical depression or storm could form as it moves inland over Belize and the Yucatan Peninsula on Saturday. The National Meteorological Service continues to closely monitor the progression of this system. And this has been this morning's weather report from the National Meteorological Service.
The first private radio in Belize since 1989, Creme FM presents the news. Accurate, current information, local, regional, and international news, weather and sports. And now, the news.
Another public hearing of the Portico Senate inquiry was finally held on Wednesday after months of delay. However, it was merely to see two intended witnesses, who are government officials, issue statements, then walk off, refusing to take any questions. They were Senator Chris Coy and Cabinet Secretary Stuart Leslie. Both were represented by Senior Counsel Eman Courtney, who is the leader of government business in the Senate. He returned to private practice but retains leadership over the handling of Belize's ICJ case. Yesterday, he said his representation of the two men is not a conflict of interest.
I do not understand that there was any adversarial appearance yesterday. These two gentlemen were invited to appear before the Senate. They accepted the invitation, they attended, they gave their statements and indicated that they would not have any further evidence to give. And on the basis of my advice, we left.
Sir, you have participated in a Senate hearing in 2017. You saw the parade of ministers that went through. Substantive questions were asked, led by you. Don't you think that these persons should also be fundamentally answerable for their public actions?
They are fundamentally answerable for their public actions. The issue that we have to pay attention to is what is being inquired into and whether there is any evidence, relevant evidence, that the Cabinet Secretary has to give and whether there is any relevant evidence that Mr. Koi has to give. If the Senate Select Committee believes that the position that they have taken is not the correct one, they know what to do. The position is, in my view, speaking for myself, I think that the inquiry needs to be brought to an end. It is costing tens of thousands of dollars, taxpayers' money, and it is on a frolic. Until Mr. Contreras goes before that Senate Select Committee, we are wasting public resources. That is my settled opinion, personally.
Isn't it though a slap in the face to the Belizean public to have these two individuals walk out of the Senate inquiry? You had Hugo Pat, who spent perhaps an hour or more just responding, I cannot recall. Isn't that at least what the public deserves?
Well, I think that's a charade. I think for you to bring somebody who says I won't answer a question and ask a person 10, 15, 20 questions so that the person simply says I'm not going to answer, I'm not going to answer, seems to me to be quite a charade. And there is no way that I would advise my clients to participate in that.
Sir, this matter of cabinet confidentiality, do you think that through the People's Constitution Commission that could be reversed?
It absolutely can be reversed if we think, and when I say we, I mean Belizean, if we think that that is an appropriate thing to
But
to,
it's
to
not
be done.
listed in...
CABSEC Leslie relied on the principle of cabinet confidentiality to decline answering any questions.
I'm here at your invitation as a cabinet secretary, not in my personal capacity. As this committee is aware, documents and deliberations of the cabinet are strictly confidential and exempt from disclosure. As cabinet secretary, I took an oath to uphold the laws and the Constitution of Belize, and I intend to be faithful to that oath. I have been advised that I am not at liberty to disclose any cabinet documents or deliberation of cabinet to this committee or otherwise. Respectfully, I am therefore not in a position to assist this committee with any evidence or documents.
Thank you very much. We note your opening statement. And yes, that is, once the light is on, you're live, so to speak. Before we begin with the senators asking their questions, would you like some water?
No, fine.
Okay. Colleagues, who would like to go first? You can indicate that you're declining to answer, but the committee...
I thought that was what my statement said.
Yes.
But yes, I am declining to answer questions.
Yes. So it is just for you to indicate that this is the basis for your decline. We just need to get it on record that we have asked and you have answered.
Hi, good morning, Cabinet Secretary. Thanks for coming. I just have a few questions that perhaps you could help me understand.
Madam Chairman, sorry to interrupt, Senator, but I have advised...
Sorry, again, morning, Senator Courtney. I know you're here as an attorney, but again, as per protocol established by the SSC, only the witnesses to convey. So you can indicate that legal advice is advising you not to respond, but we would like to pose the questions for you. Sorry, can you put on your mic and then we just have you on record?
Sorry, I will not answer any questions.
Thank you.
Cabsec, I note that you have said that you will not answer questions that are confidential. Could you assist us with questions of procedure?
For his part, Senior Counsel Godfrey Smith, who is a former Attorney General, was not so sure that the principle can be overturned if it were the public will. As to the Senate inquiry, he says that he has to support such a mechanism.
First of all, let me be clear that I have to support the Senate, the ability of the Senate to have a special inquiry, because if I'm not mistaken, it is the government that I was a part of when I was Attorney General that amended the Constitution to allow for that to take place. I can only imagine we must have thought it a good thing, and I still think that it's a good power to have. I can't and won't comment on particular legal stances taken by any particular minister, because I haven't actually looked at the law in relation to ministers and cabinet secretary and those things. It may be that arguably if I was retained, I would have had to put forward legal arguments supporting their refusal or their decision not to. I don't know, because I haven't examined it. I don't know the law, but certainly I support the concept of Senate special inquiries into matters of public interest, like this one. But as to the nuances, I can't get into the weeds of the particular, because I don't know the law. I haven't looked at the facts.
But you agree with the principle that, of course, public officials should be held answerable?
Of course, everybody should be held answerable and accountable.
And in that vein, cabinet confidentiality, because that was one of the facets that was relied upon by one of the witnesses. Through a People's Constitution Commission, should we have that removed?
I don't know that you can. I mean, I think again, you're catching me cold. I haven't had I haven't had a chance to research or look at any of this, but I would think that cabinet confidentiality must hold universally to cover a wider range of things. I'm not sure that it's a blanket confidentiality, but I haven't researched the matter. I haven't studied it, and I'd have to do that.
Former police officer Elmer Nah returns to the High Court today for the continuation of the case management in the matter of the triple Remna race murder in Belmopan. He has secured representation from Senior Counsel Godfrey Smith, who also represented his uncle Marco Vidal. Smith revealed yesterday that they are getting foreign experts to enhance the surveillance footage of the shooting that resulted in the 3 murders.
But certainly the video of the shooter on the premises of the deceased person's shooting will feature prominently. We have retained a highly reputable forensic video and audio forensics firm in Los Angeles to have a look at that, because it holds the answer to who did the shooting, if it can be enhanced. I will say this, that what they have come back to us to say is that, look, the CD that you have may have been distorted. You need to get the video from the original recording source if there is to be a chance of seeing the face of the shooter. And so we've made application for that. They were able to point out on the recording we have that it was obviously adopted not from the original source. It was adopted from the original source, and that we need to get hold of the original source. And we've also made an application to get the contents of Mr. Naz's cell phone and other things that are currently in the possession of the police. That's as far as unconventionality goes.
But you have to depend on the state to turn over that original, or the police?
They are obliged to do it, because that is part of the preparation of our defense. They have to give us access to what we're asking for, with supervision, of course.
You've asked for it already, and
Yes.
they've not given it to you?
I would not say they haven't given it. It's been asked. These things take some time. I expect to get a response in due course.
Justice Rajiv Guntilki has set December 19th and 20th to hear the substantive challenge to the government's acquisition of the 23.4-acre extension. The parties have gone to court prepared yesterday to argue regarding an injunction sought, but the government gave its undertaking that it will hold off on the acquisition until the constitutional challenge is settled after December. Senior Counsel Godfrey Smith is representing Michael Finstein, who has title to the extension.
The end goal is vindication that the 23.4 acres standing in his name, which was issued to him by the Minister of Natural Resources, he validly holds title to it and it is lawfully his. Our instructions, the instructions from our client is that he does not believe that it is for a legitimate public purpose and for a number of other grounds. And so his position is he intends to challenge that. Without the land being vested in the government, it can't be transferred to MSC or UPSA or State Bank or anybody else. So the outcome of this hearing will determine whether the government can in fact lawfully take Mr. Finstein's, or constitutionally acquire, compulsorily acquire Mr. Feinstein's 23.4 acres.
Okay, but now I imagine your client must be saying, well, if you can sell to MSC, I can sell to MSC. Of course, there's a receivership in the middle of that. Obviously, there's many layering of matters, but is your client exercised or concerned that there's a plan afoot to sell the project?
Well, he clearly is, otherwise we wouldn't have been instructed to take the actions that we are currently taking to challenge that action every step of the way.
Is your client open to a buyout, to just the government saying, here's a compensation of X million?
There are discussions, or let me put it this way, letters have been exchanged.
But those have not been to anyone's satisfaction.
So far, correspondence issued on behalf of our client have not been answered.
And your client has said it has uncovered some emails that speak to a sale that was planned to MSC.
Yes, I think that's in the public domain. That may very well feature in the cases we have going before the court.
Finstein is objecting to 2 documents being admitted into evidence. Those are 2 letters in which Finstein put down his request for compensation for the land. The other lawsuit brought by the receiver against Michael Finstein, disputing the ownership of the extension of the extension land, is to continue next year. The National Trade Union Congress of Belize, the NTUCB, continues to press the government of Belize for accountability and transparency regarding compulsory land acquisition for public purpose. The NTUCB wrote a letter to the Prime Minister some weeks ago regarding the acquisition of the 23.4-acre extension of the State Bank Island. The PM failed to provide some of the details that the NTUCB requested, and the Congress highlights this in a release yesterday and states, quote, "Perhaps the government prefers the NTUCB to bring a judicial review case against the government or join the ongoing litigation to get the answers it seeks on an issue of public concern," end of quote. The NTUCB then reiterates that, quote, "Rescuing the private project is not a public purpose, notwithstanding the project's physical scale, the magnitude of sunken investment, or the granting of tax benefits for a period of 20 years, end of quote. The Congress informs that it intends to present for the government's consideration legislation to amend or repeal and replace the 2 pieces of legislation that has to do with land acquisition. It explains that so far in 2024, there has been 7 first notices of compulsory acquisition, and notes that the public is not being made effectively aware of them, and there is no evaluation and report by the government on the outcome and benefits to Belizeans and how much is paid. The NTUCB says it also intends to submit to the government rules regarding government's use of external legal advisors and best practices or guiding principles for legal advice, including legal opinions. Another public hearing of the Portico Senate inquiry was finally held on Wednesday. And that's our news brief for this morning, prepared by our news center. There's more news coming up at around 12 o'clock, right after the morning stew, an update at 3 o'clock, and a full broadcast on Creme Radio at 5:15. Here on XTV, we'll bring you the news at 6 o'clock this evening. It's now 2 minutes to 7 o'clock. We'll take a short break and open the phone lines. We do expect a guest in a little bit after the 7:30 break. Stay tuned.
The first private radio in Belize since 1989. The news. Informative,
welcome back. This is WUB, Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. It's a Friday morning, the 18th day of October, 2024. Imagine that we're almost a couple of months away from the end of 2024. You know, people like say, man, where the time gone, how he moves so fast. But people have been saying this from ancient time. It's not that time is moving fast, it's just perception. It's moving slow for some people when you're in pain, and it moves fast for other people when things seem to be going so well. But whatever the time is, take advantage of it. It may be your last day or your last week or your last year, so take advantage of what you have. Our phone lines are now open at 280-5848. We welcome your call. I wanted to mention yesterday that I reviewed on Facebook that there seemed to be a very lively conversation regarding the U.S. presidential election that is coming up. I think it's the 5th of November. So that is less than a month away. And it seems like some Belizeans are very excited about what's going on, of course, because so many of our people, and by the way, we don't have no official figure yet on how many Belizeans live in the diaspora. How is that? How come Jamaicans can give estimates, Barbadians can give estimates, but Belizeans somehow can't give estimates? Some in the area you go, we are 60,000 people. Another area where 300,000 people. People extrapolate and say, well, you know, I believe that the amount of Belizeans over there for the amount of years they're there and the amount of children and grandchildren, etc., that we must have well over 200,000 Belizeans abroad. There ought to be some statistic. I was told recently by the tourism ministry that they have a registry where Belizeans can say, I am Belizean living in the States, so that we could get a kind of at least a ballpark figure, even if we can't get it specific, of the census of how many Belizeans are living abroad. We do know that there are some very active Belizeans that have maintained the conversation about being involved in Belize, and this goes way, way, way back. We say Compton Fairweather, but way even before. We have the great Samuel Haynes and others that have been involved in keeping a Belizean consciousness in the States. We know also of many others, Norman Fairweather, Bert Tucker. We know of our brother Roland York, Mr. Paul Warren, Miss Muriel Staines. We've got so many persons, excuse me, that have tried to maintain that connection and try to not allow Belizeans to forget. And modern time, using media, we have Aria Lightfoot, we have Michael Young, we have Bilal Morris, and others. Our first call. Welcome, caller. Yes, sir. Walaikum assalam.
How are you, my brother?
Yes, sir. I'm well, thank God. How are you?
I'm doing fine, praise be to Allah.
Indeed.
Brother Nuri, I want to speak a little bit on the U.S. elections and the migration of Belizeans abroad.
Okay.
First of all, whether it's the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, whether it's Harris or Trump, it's not going to make too much difference in the U.S. foreign policy to the world and their hegemony over this planet. They have been given certain time to rule this planet as per se, similar like the Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Persians, etc., etc. So their time of rulership pretty much have come to an end. But under all means, they tend to hold on to power in terms of the influence that they once had throughout this world. I think they have played a role in terms of development, both in the US and worldwide, but pretty much now the world have a lot of technology that they once controlled, excuse me, similar like the Germans when Hitler was there. They do not intend to relinquish that power and control that they once had on this planet, but by all means it would have to. Nevertheless, whether the Republican Party win the elections or the Democrat, as I said before, it's not going to be much changes economically or politically for Belize. We would have to seek our own path. We would have to seek our own development. I think it's high time that the Caribbean, that Africa, that Latin America, Asia Pacific region come to a realization that you must be able to chart your own path. You must be able to develop your own economy. Notwithstanding, we are living in a global village. Therefore, it's all interconnected. But the time has come that the hands-out thing that the Caribbean was receiving from Europe and the United States in particular must stop. If not, we're going to be for the next 100 years in the same financial and undeveloped state that we are in. And secondly, in terms of the mass migration of the Nuri that have taken place from Belize since the 30s or the 40s, and it is continuing until today day, I think it is high time that we reflect what is the benefit of this mass migration. In my perspective, Brother Nuri, I see little in terms of the development technologically for Belize. I see little in terms of the industrial development for Belize, because when a kid leaves Belize, say graduating from high school, and you go abroad, and you spend the next 40, 50 years of your life abroad, individually, you become very successful. But that same knowledge and youthfulness, if you had stayed home and invested that in Belize, we would have been much farther ahead than to spend all of those years out there. And yes, there have been some remittance. Yes, you have sent home some money, maybe built up one or two beautiful houses. But that knowledge that you could have shared, that manpower that you could have invested in your country, it don't work the while for Belize. And this is why we are stagnated today. And sometimes a lot of Belizeans would curse the aliens, these aliens coming and taking over this, that. But what happened? The vacuum was left after the mass migration of Afro-Belizean in particular, and then people came in from Central America and worked in help developing Belize through agriculture and through other means.
All right.
And then the Asians came in from Southeast Asia and China and did likewise. So I think that it is high time that Afro-Belizean in particular stop and check and say, you know what, I'm going to stay and help develop Belize. If not, then I don't see the reason why complaining, Brother Nuri, because as far as my vision is concerned, other people have lost hope.
Yeah, all right, good. I think I understand. I appreciate your contribution this morning, Brother Dawood. And you're right in many of the points that you've made this morning. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you so much, brother. I'm going to listen off the air, brother.
All right, thank you for your
you're
call.
welcome.
Our number here is 280-5848. He's made some interesting observations about this process of us leaving Belize. And in terms of his first comment about U.S. hegemony and power, which we have approached many times from a conspiratorial kind of position about their use of their power to try to control, which is, as he said, no different than other great empires have used their influence and power. It seems to go with this idea of power to control as much as you can. We see it locally, where individuals, when they grow to a certain level of influence and power, they begin to control. And so it's instinctive. It's not only an American thing. Clearly, we've seen other states in the past, and we see states quite recently exercising this influence, whether it's China over its influence, whether it's North Korea, its influence, whether it's the former Soviet Union over its influence. We've seen this even in the African continent. Yes, welcome, caller.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning, brother.
Hey. Lots have been taken place, some good, some bad.
We need a little bit more volume, brother. You're a little distant from your speaker, from your phone.
Yeah, a lot has been taken place in this country. Some good, some bad. The Take Bank project, one noble project that was designed to help Belizean in the tourist industry. You see what part there, in the port house.
You're still a little bit distant, brother.
I don't know, because the talk kind of hard.
All right, I hear you much better now. I just want to make sure that you're the control.
All right, yeah, man. I say one noble project. The Take Bank project to help Belizean. You know, Mr. Finstein thing was to help the Belizean people, get themselves off the ground. The two part there, in our courthouse. And why end up in our courthouse? Because of foreign interest. They're not for we interest at heart. These politicians never have for we interest at heart. That they pass money for them to come up, get influenced by outsiders and then come up quick. The same thing will happen with the commerce by singers. Then people believe, they were nice food. Why you be nice? When the private people have got 80% and you only got 20%, and you own the port. Tell me how that end up, sir. You own the port, Dan Guigan. You don't own that. You're not supposed to always have the majority share in that. How you get to 80-20? I have to tell you right away. So you don't lose on the port. You don't lose the commerce by thing. That's gone. And when I use to take it away, PPP, public-private partnership, that's the way they trick them with it. I don't understand where the kitchen is country and continue to take the lick and make them politicians here to settle up. And foreign interest will always take over. That's all I got to say, brother. Nuri, and you take care, brother.
All right, my brother. Good. Make our next important point, which developing countries face today. We don't have our own local source for investment, so we end up looking at foreign investors, and especially as sexy as they may be, we are bombarded by, as they say, man with briefcase, that used to use that term in the old days, knocking on the door of government saying, I could invest my money in this, invest my money in that, and government wanting to provide a more secure, a more financially feasible environment so that their people can grow at the base. They accept these investors coming in. In the old days, those of you who are old enough to remember, that we used to have a clause saying that we want to make sure that if there is a public and private partnership, that we maintain a certain amount of control over the direction of that development. Not only through policies, etc., but to ensure that if you put up X amount of percentage in that company, that government retains a majority of that. That can't necessarily happen in this day and time because government does not have the kind of finances to be able to do that. But in our local persons, like in the case of Finstein, that's not necessarily money that's coming only out of Mr. Finstein's pocket, but it's a partnership where Mr. Finstein is putting his financing, but he's also getting backative of finances to try to make his project work. What government should be doing in all of these circumstances is creating an environment to ensure that they are making the local investor in a strong position and not allow these large, huge, multi-million investors to have control over our local industry. This is a slow process, yes, but it is better to ensure that our local investors are always in a stronger position than foreign investors. And we should use the example of those that have gone before us. I mean, Belize is 42 years old, but in the Caribbean, you've got countries that are 60 years old in their independence, 100 years old in their independence. And we should be examining not only the Caribbean, but we should look in other areas and see how is it done to ensure that Belizean private sector have a stronger position, or if government is involved in it, that government has a stronger position because we're looking for the interests of our own people. Sure, it's easy for us to say, well, we want to go with whether it's Bucalis or whether we do this huge cargo multinational that is interested in doing investment in Belize, but we can't open ourselves up because we don't know whore. We don't know whore, we don't know prostitute. We don't know, you come in with big money, so therefore you come in and you will get all the concessions that you need to be able to make us rich, make us powerful. Yes, we want to get investors. Yes, we want money in the economy. Yes, we want to ensure that since we are not able to generate that kind of fund, we want to have partnership. We're not against foreign investor. But we've got to make sure that at the bottom line that we are protecting those who are at our own private sector, those who are putting their own money up to make sure that we succeed in our trajectory of development. We want to make sure that Belizeans are in a sense of control. If we don't do that, we'll always be fighting with these multinationals. And I was talking to a friend yesterday about a company like BlackRock. In case you don't remember, Google it and see the expanse of that multinational investment company who is stationed in the United States, but has investments in so many areas because they are part of the board of directors of these many companies. When I read about BlackRock's investment, it's all in Microsoft, it's in Google, it's in some of the productive sectors in different countries. They are there on the board of directors pulling strings to ensure that their investment is secure. And sometimes pulling the string for ensuring that their investment is secure ends up turning us one against the other. And governments come into very, very difficult positions when they're trying to fight these multinational investment companies. Again, I'm not saying, we have only our own centralized government process, because we've looked and seen how that happens when you have states only trying to keep control over investment and keep foreigners away. We don't want to go down that road. But we have to find the way in which our investment partnership does not put Belizeans in jeopardy and does not put Belizeans in such a situation that We are only viewed as, yes, next, come in, invest, yeah, we can give you all the concessions that you need. And at the end of the day, when you look at us, we are really just modern day slaves and servants for these mighty investors. I wanted to say just again, and we're going to the break in a second, but I wanted to say that those who have been expressing their opinions about the US election, it's very interesting to see how Belizeans, particularly Belizeans who have attached themselves to either Trump or Harris on this upcoming election. It's interesting to read the comments of people who are really strong Trump supporters. And one particular person is saying that my life has improved tremendously since I've been in the United States under Trump. And when Biden came in, my economic situation began to constrict. I know they make as much money under Biden, which is assuming that that won't continue under Harris. So I'm for Trump. I'm for Trump to return because he's a much better economic planner, and I would want to see my money grow. I want to see my children grow, and I think it will happen under Trump. This is a very interesting scenario, because clearly if you read the local media and even the international media, particularly the ones that come to us in Belize, there's a very strong anti-Trump bias, very strong. I mean, all of his court cases and all of these matters that he's said, everything from his COVID experience, the statements that he's made, the idiotic statements that he's made, are all highlighted and in our face constantly, as if this is Trump, a simpleton getting into the White House. Trump is not a simpleton. He would not have gotten where he is if he was a simpleton and a stupid man. And so we have to be very careful to not take some infantile analysis or analytics to try to understand what's going on in the United States. I read where some people say, I'm not really there with Trump, but I like his policy of trying to bring America back to a moral standing. I don't know how they could come to that conclusion, but there's a strong, for example, evangelical group of people in the southern part of the United States that are against the LGBT. They're against this transgender argument that's going on. They're against those kind of free flow that they believe that the Democrats have brought about. And so they may not, you know, it's like they hold their nose on the other areas of Trump that they don't agree with, but they want Trump in there because they figure in this cultural war that they're going through that Trump is on their side. And so while, you know, people are in love with Obama, you know, and that whole idea that there's a black person in the White House and you know, women are the strongest supporters of Obama and Miss Harris, you know, there is also that backlash and of people who are thinking that those persons, yeah, they look all right, but Democrats, you know, the bottom line here, really, you know, they help we as say, help we. And they've even made the statement that under Obama's time, he seemed to have given more to the LGBT, he's given more to that kind of free flow in the society than he gave even to black Americans. So there's an argument going on there, and I'm not taking a position. I'm trying to just express what I've been reading and analyzing, because I know the vote, you're not a vote. You are a Belizean. We vote in our election. We have our own political process, which again is heating up. We see something going on this weekend with the warring factions between the UDP to try to get themselves together for the elections, which clearly is not that far away. Some people are saying as early next year we should be looking for elections. So we have our own electoral process, we have our own arguments, we have our own pros and cons as to what's going on in Belize. But this international stage, particularly in the United States, is a very important lesson for us to learn. The caller earlier said the hegemony of the United States will not change whether it's Trump or Harris. Why? Because there is a power behind the power. It's not the individual Trump, it's not the individual Harris, it's the powers that be that decides what is in the best interest of the United States. For example, Miss Harris is clearly afraid, even though she's hinting that she doesn't agree with the slaughter that is taking place in the Gaza. She recognizes that the United States is the vocative that have contributed to the genocide that is going on in the Gaza. But she dare not come out and say that too loud, and so she's just popping around the tulips and the daffodils to try to give you a hint that, look, I am not for all-out war. I'm not for all-out slaughter of those people that we've been looking at over the last year. But she dare not bring that out. She has to make it look as though I want to continue the Biden administration's process of supporting Israel and what the Israelis have been doing. This we have to take as the last call before we go to this break. Yes, welcome. So you have to make it short because I have to go to 2 cents camp. Yeah. Okay, my brother, thanks very much. We'll tell the technical people for that. We'll now break for 2 cents cam, and 2 cents cam is sponsored by Fort Point Security. Welcome back. This is WUB, Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. We're thankful for your calls, and at the closer to the end of our conversation here with our guests, we'll open the phone lines because we think there should be reasons why you will want to engage in this conversation. Our guest this morning is the former attorney. She's an attorney, but not actively in the courts. She is Cynthia Pitts, the former ombudsman. Maybe you could tell me why they keep it as an ombudsman even though they have a woman. She is also a human rights advocate and has been very active in the Human Rights Commission. And generally anybody who knows Jenny, as we call her from our youth, is a very caring individual who is always engaged wherever she sees human beings of Belize needing assistance. So with all that introduction, welcome, Cynthia.
I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad that you are.
It is at short notice.
Very short notice. I'm glad you, and I took advantage of our friendship for you to come here because there are many issues. We've just gone through an SOE. We've gone through the tragic death of a young boy. We've gone through an incident recently in Dangriga where a child was left to wander into the bushes. We have seen increase in murders. We've seen increase in domestic violence. We've seen a number of areas that are concerning to us as human beings. So while politics and while economics and these other areas are of interest to us, both local and international, there are some basic fundamental human issues that affects all of us. So I'm glad that you accepted the invitation to come. Can we start by getting an overview of what are we talking about when we talk about human rights? What is it?
Okay. Before I answer your question, I am making a disclaimer that I am here as a citizen in my own right. I'm not representing the Human Rights Commission or any institution that I have been a part of. I might have my opinions, and they are personal opinions, and I think I have a right, to speak of them as a citizen. So I just want that out there. So whatever I say, don't be blaming anyone or any such thing. Now, when people ask about human rights, I always think that we should be very accurate as to what we are saying. So I'm not going to speak out of my head a general thing. I will just speak to a very simple definition that's here in front of me, which is human rights are rights that all human beings are entitled to. And I might add that from the time we are born, you are born with your human right. It isn't anything that anybody can give you. No government can give you your human rights. Everyone has human rights. Even the criminals, they have human rights. Why? Because they are human beings. We are born with it. A baby is born and has human rights. So it is rights that all human beings are entitled to and which are intended to protect the person's basic freedoms and dignity as a human being. Simply put. And what are those basic freedoms? We have heard of them a number of times. The freedom from unlawful arrest or detention, the freedom to a fair trial, the right to equal protection of the law, and that's only a few.
Does government give you human rights, or are human rights that we enjoy only come from the Constitution? And if it is not in the Constitution, we don't have those rights?
No, as I said, we have human rights. No one can give it to you. And in the Constitution, it is enshrined. You know, enshrined. There is a particular section in the Constitution which speaks about your fundamental rights. And as I said, those rights are intended to protect the citizen. Protection. And that is the responsibility of the state.
So the state has a responsibility to ensure these inalienable rights that are given to us as human beings.
Yes, that we are born with.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
So why is it then in Belize and other areas, jurisdictions, we see governments violating human rights?
Well, I think we have to understand that we are human beings. And we are born with certain propensities, and we always hear the saying that power corrupts. And so in my opinion, when we see corruption and people violating human rights, I think it is your base nature coming out. You are not functioning as you should, which maybe takes you back to a spiritual mantra. Clearly. You know that we are here in the image of the Creator, and it is expected that you should live up to certain morals and norms, and it isn't happening, and so you have corruption, that is my view. I think that if you care, because really human rights can be said to be something that was taught a long time ago. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Indeed. Love your neighbor. And in my opinion, that's the basic thing, the foundation. Because if you love your neighbor, you wouldn't do certain things. And if you care about people and your country, and whatever organization you are working with and you want the best for that organization, you will not do wrong. And so it's a basic thing.
It is there. But again, the state has to make a distinction between giving you your human rights, but at the same time protecting the human rights of the larger society. And so for that reason, it can institute sometimes laws or certain actions on the part of the state that may appear to violate your individual human rights on behalf of protecting the human rights of the larger society.
Yeah,
how do we deal with that conflict?
Well, that is where the word balance comes in. You have to have a balance. And I know it is hard. And I think the best way when you have competing policies or opinions is to consult. Consult with everybody, as many persons as you can, so that you get a proper balance. You don't do it on your own. Yes, you have to have a balance, but you don't sit with the other side that maybe has an opposing view to what you are doing or might not understand what you are doing. So you try to make people understand what you are doing, and consultation. And I think we all know that that is one of the things that don't happen often in our country, in Belize. Consultation.
Well, consultation on the issue of your inalienable right almost seem to be on that principle of love for yourself, what you love for others, or the other way. Love for others what you love for yourself, or do unto others as you would have them do unto you, it's a challenge, particularly when you're dealing with sometimes heinous crimes that people commit against each other. And you have to find the balance now. I guess this is what a judge and a court system is supposed to do. But in some cases, and we've seen this, we're not going to focus so much on Belize, but looking at it internationally or universally, that sometimes the state have to make a decision that almost seems as though it's violating the right of an individual because of the heinous nature of what that individual has done to the larger society. And the state might be accused of violating people's human rights in trying to find that balance there. Can you comment on that?
Well, that is why I said that it is a difficult thing. But I think that if you explain why you have to do things, and explain it in all its entirety, you know, not only highlighting the heinousness of the crime and, well, I have to do, but explain about the other side as well, and let everyone know that this is a decision which is difficult, but I'm looking on the other side too. You know, and I think the word restraint comes to mind. You know, as human beings, I think we are apt to do things and think that we are doing it for the good. But one must pause and consult and explain. Clarity, transparency. I think that if people understand things and you put forth your arguments within the framework of what exists, you know, the law says this, yes, but the law also says this. Because even when states have to do things that might seem to be very heavy-handed, the law always talks about the reasonableness of it. You know, that word is always there. The reasonableness. You just don't get up and do things that are heavy-handed. You know, it has to be reasonable. You have to look at everything.
So when the opinion exists that an action on the part of the state does not appear to fall into this area of being reasonable, then the state is challenged for the action that they have taken. Is the only source of challenging the actions of the state the court, or are there other ways that you could challenge the action of the state that you view as being unreasonable?
Well, I think that the victims, I mean, if people suffer, because remember that the laws we have were created by man. We are the ones who agreed that if we want to live in a society with law and order, we will have these laws. No one forced anybody with a gun to make these laws. So if we say that we are living in a country where this is how it should be, procedures, then one expects that the state will follow that. If those are not followed, well, then that's the time the word challenge, I guess, can be used. On the other hand, the state can be advised, you know, that this wasn't the way that this should have been done, and in the future, try and do it in the way that it should be. But then if you have people who suffered under when the state didn't act as it should, well, then you can expect a challenge.
One of the areas where the human rights, especially advocates like yourself, argued that while a life taken is a violation of the human right of the individual who was murdered, who suffered as a result of the action of another person, they have argued that to go back to a Mosaic position of an eye for an eye, which means that if you kill, you should be killed. And they have argued that it is a violation for you to have capital punishment in society, and this is an evolution primarily out of the European thinking, because it started in Europe that they say no more executions, only life imprisonment. But within the Caribbean, where we have not fully adopted that kind of thinking, and we're human beings just like them, but for some reason they have argued that to kill a human being is almost animalistic. For you, just because somebody died, why should you want to kill that person? And so the argument has been advanced that capital punishment, even within the context of the Caribbean and in the context of Belize, we should not, regardless to how heinous that murder was, and we found that person guilty, we had all the evidence of what he or she did, the worst of what should happen to that person is that they should stay alive. Their victim is dead, but they should stay alive and suffer the consequences of their action by remaining in prison for life. And then life has also, by the High Court, been defined as a certain amount of time and not life without getting the chance to come out. How do you, as an attorney for so many years, who have seen this kind of evolution in Belize, because I remember back in 1985 we hung the last person, Bowers, but since that time we have not hung anybody, but at the same time we have not removed that condition from the law. It's still there. Today they ain't go hang you. But there's so many obstacles, primarily from human rights advocates, that we don't want to go down that road. So how do you balance that almost contradiction?
The word restraint jumps to my mind, because remember that we are the ones, men, who crafted the rules and the laws because we want law and order. And yes, when someone kills someone, if you would kill the other person quickly, well, then you feel it is done. But an argument has always been that you have the courts to really know who really did it, because the possibility of a mistake. And also, the person languishing in prison, he might be getting a worse punishment than death. And if he is killed, he's gone quickly. But if he languishes in jail, maybe that is even a worse punishment. And also you have to look on the environment and the society that that person who killed came up in. We are the ones who are here to set the pace, to say that we want a society and a country, law and order. We want to give our people opportunities. We are here, the state is here to have them live as best a life as they could. So if you check out people who do these things, where are they coming from? Were they born evil and wicked? What kind of life have they led from the time? You know, I know it's hard, because if your loved one is killed, you don't want to hear that. You know, that is nonsense. I don't want to hear that. But really, if you are a restrained person, and if you try to lead a spiritual life, you know, and think about mankind, you know, I think that you more understand that even the person who committed the crime, something went wrong, something is wrong. How can you even think of killing somebody? And if you think of doing that, well, then something is wrong. You know, people would say, well, it's just pure evil. You're just evil, and you deserve to be put out. You deserve to be put down. But then that isn't the kind of society that we say that we want to create. And when we make our laws, the whole intention was to move away from that. You know, that is the way I see it. You know, not coming from any commission or anything.
Yes,
but
clearly.
that is my personal
But
opinion.
Look at this, and we're going to go to our first break after this question. That is an evolution primarily out of a European consciousness. We can't hide the fact that their laws have influenced the laws in their colonies, and pretty much their laws in the United Nations even. And so that principle that you've just articulated is a principle that suggests that we ought not to be as savage as the savage, that we ought to restrain and that we ought to have a higher response to even the savage action. And while that makes sense, your argument just now makes sense, how do we put that into the context of what has been happening in Gaza? Because, and it's interesting because the Israelis claim that they come out of the Mosaic concept of the Jews who were told an eye for an eye, and it was a balance. If we weigh it on the side and you committed a wrong, then you should be punished in accordance with what you have done. Yet we see that in the scenario that has unfolded in the Middle East over the last year and more, is that the figure is a little over 1,200 people were killed, were captured, and were massacred. Yet on this side, where the balance is supposed to equate with how many were killed on this side, there is a unrelenting killing and massacring of far more than 1,000. We now reach 50,000, which includes gross violation of human rights, because we're not fighting the Hamas that did these things, but where they killed in Picnic, where they killed this one, where they bomb out, even the bomb out people were not necessarily was even involved in this. So how do we justify that, of these nations coming to us after that blood on their hands, blood on their conscience, recorded blood in what they are doing, and it continues even now, to lecture us and to say, no, should I maintain human rights, man? No, they kill nobody. I mean, that's so ancient, that's so primitive. Put them in a jail, man, and make them stay in a jail for umpteen years, because it's not, you just not kill people like that. That's a savage thing. And I remember, because I used to read it in the 60s and the 70s when they were trying to convince us in developing countries that stop being so savage, man. Just put that person on gear, life in prison. Yet the United States is still executing people. They're doing it quite recently. They're executing even the innocent people that are being found after years of not committing the crime. So how do we juxtapose that kind of contradiction?
Okay, firstly, I haven't been really following up the war. You can't get away from it, you know what's happening.
Yes.
But I'm not one of those who follow it step by step.
I understand.
And I do hear of the lack of proportionality, that word is used.
Yes.
The 1,200 that was killed, I hear that it is about 60,000. I've heard up to 60,000.
Yes, it's going up.
And, well, of course, that is terrible. I mean, the reason I don't follow it up, because I don't think I can stand it.
Yes, most people
right
now
It is painful
can,
to hear.
Indeed.
And so you try to shut it out. So when it comes to that, and as you speak, the word that comes to mind, the geopolitics of the world, because we have to understand that we live in a world where basically the one with the power is the one that has the say. So we can hear all the nice talks and so on, because my understanding is that if the United States would stop supporting the Israelis, then this massacre would probably halt.
No doubt.
But I have heard, it isn't anything that I figured out myself, but I have heard that they will not do anything to stop anything until after elections, because it might affect, if they would now say that we are not going to support the Israelis anymore, then the votes they would probably get from people who are Jewish might not be there, So I think that we know that we live in a world where the geopolitics is who has might has right.
Wow.
And so that is why you have advocates of rights, defenders, who just keep on doing what they are doing.
So on
to,
one
to
hand,
try to bring some.
On one hand, you're talking about an ideal of morality, but on the other side, you're talking about the geopolitics of might makes right.
And the reality that one lives in.
And we could dispense of that moral thing that
we know we live in a real world. And so one just has to keep on speaking as to what is the fairness, the equality, the justice, the human rights principles. It doesn't mean you stop talking about it. You just have to keep on.
All right, we'll bring it back. We'll take our second break, and we'll start looking at issues of SOE and other areas when we come back on our break. guest this morning is Cynthia Pitts. She's a former ombudsman. And how come they don't change that thing to ombudslady and ombudswoman? I know it's the title of ombudsman, but anyway, that's
No, I want to explain
Please,
it.
why?
It is a Swedish word, and that is to start with.
Oh, okay.
And they haven't been able to find an English term to replace that word.
I see.
The man means that you're an agent for the people.
Okay.
The welfare of the people.
Yeah.
So if you want to speak about persons who hold that position, you have to know to construct your sentence and go a long way around it.
Yeah.
Persons holding the title of ombudsman, and it is a gender neutral word as well.
Yes,
and
yes,
so,
interesting.
People always ask about that.
I'm glad you're answering that, because up to last night I was saying, isn't that interesting that that gender issue has not been addressed in the ombudsman, but it's not an English word, it's a Swedish word.
And they have never been able to find a word. So over the whole world, it is still ombudsman.
You're educating us, you're educating us. All right, we are going to open up the phone lines after the next break, because I'm sure that you also want to make an input in this conversation. But I want to look now on the enabling environment that produces negative and sometimes criminal behavior. I know that there was a time when we were very sensitive to the distinction of right and wrong. If somebody that bring you something where you know that not for you, there was a moral compass that said, no, not for me that. No matter how much the person lie and tell you, boy, you could get this and I'll give you this, and you want to know where this come from. I don't know if it was our fear of police, or it was more our fear of God, that we're going to get punished if we do something we're wrong. But I know now that in 2024, that sensitivity has been reduced and in some cases completely lost from some of our people. And so an issue, for example, like, and it is a crime, handling stolen goods. Me finding a phone or thieving a phone, an iPhone, and going to you, Mr. Respectable, and giving you a proposal that a lie, boy, my brother left this for me or bring this for me, and you look on it and give me only $200 for that. And you know that I want $1,000+ phone, brand new. You don't start going, boy, where you get that? I wonder if this man think, no, but I know I'm fool with that. It used to happen way back, but now it becomes that, yeah, I want to get one iPhone. All right. So we've got an environment that seems to look at criminal behavior not in the same way in which we looked at it before. And so we've had now an increase in criminals who may not have even necessarily have one reputation of being a criminal. We could say, oh, he's bad for his smile. But people who don't even appear to be quote-unquote criminals involving themselves in dishonest behavior, particularly fraud. One man told me yesterday, if you imagine the kind of hanasi that takes place in immigration, customs, and some of these other places where the person who is doing it, you would never think when you see her on the drive that they would be involved in all these underhanded kind of behavior, yet it is there. So I want you to address that from that same moral but legal perspective that you were talking about, of how then do we countenance an SOE, which ended up with over 100 of our young men locked down for 3 months. Some wanted to suggest that it goes on for a year. Make you give a vocally think they are all bad, And when you look at that, by the way, because I was involved very much there, 99.9% of those were young black males. We never find no Mennonite, even though dishonesty is there. Mm-hmm. We never find no large amount of mestizo, even though criminality is there. We never find no Chinese, no Indian, no 99.9 were black males. Are they all evil? Are they all bad? Are they all criminals? So how do we justify in that current situation dealing the way we deal with some and not dealing with the same principle of dishonesty, wrong, and crime with all?
Well, firstly, all those young men were babies. They were born. Were they born evil? Were they born bad? Something happened in their rearing. It is the conditions, the societal conditions, I think, that we are not addressing sufficiently. Not enough finances, resources, not enough paying attention or giving attention to persons who have studied the situation. I was in a forum where this very matter was being discussed, and one person was saying, you know, maybe we need to go to the jails and speak to these people in the jail to find out why they do what they do. And these people have done researches, surveys, countless. So why now we are hearing that we should go to the prison to interview? So I was present, and I know the survey to me that I place much emphasis on and believe that if the recommendations were followed, maybe there would be a dent, is the Gale.
Yeah, Dr. Gale.
Dr. Gale. Mm-hmm. And so I mentioned, who all have heard or read the Gale report? Hardly anybody. About 2 hands went up. And so that tells you that you don't know how, I don't know if it is a lack of understanding. We like to say that many of our politicians, they don't have sufficient education, if you want to call it, you know, to be in the leadership positions that they are. Maybe they don't understand. Maybe they don't see the connection between the social conditions and the criminals that you have. So I think it starts there. I think a lot of social work, social improvement needs to be done. Mm-hmm. The education system, does it really educate a person for life? Does it prepare you for life instead of just preparing you to sit an exam, you know, that you can memorize whatever you're going to be asked, and some people get in there and they know a lot, but they just freeze. Mm-hmm. And if they freeze and they didn't do well, is it now you label that person? And so they can't get a job, they can't this because they freeze up in the exam room. I think the education system still needs to be tweaked and looked at. You know, I know they keep doing it over and over, but I think that more efforts, more money maybe needs to be done. Yes, I know that when I was going to school, I mean, the emphasis was to come out and get a job, apply for a job. You know, it wasn't that you are being taught that, well, you are here and we are making you into a person where you can look at what you do well. I mean, counseling, we didn't even have counseling, you know, in the high school I went to, to guide you to what is it that you do best, what is it that you like, that we were entirely on our own. Now I believe that is not so, but I don't know to what extent. You know, people are still coming out, and I understand that the call centers, you know, are being placed as the as the number one place that young people can get a job immediately. So I think the social conditions have a lot to do with it. And as you spoke, social conditions that translate into what happens in your family, the upbringing that you get. And personally, I mean, I would not buy something which I believe is probably, stolen goods. And why? Because it is sort of ingrained in me, that I should not. And where is that coming from? It isn't that one day my mother sat me down and said, no, when anybody come to you with anything, you should not. No. But it is just seeing the way your parents, or maybe one of them, because we are not all blessed with having the two parents doing the right thing.
Clearly.
So if one is doing the right thing and one has those principles, it is sort of absorbed into you. They don't tell you, but you see how they live their life. And you know that they wouldn't do this, they wouldn't do that. And so even if maybe in your teenage years you were rebellious and you did things that you knew that they would not do, as you got older, your principles started to set in, and you would never do certain things. Indeed. Why? And when you look at it, you ask, why wouldn't I do that? And it is the home life. But then if you have to eke out a living and constantly wondering what is going to be on the table, then maybe you don't have time to be living like that.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's also a situation, we're going to take our next break now, is they say, do so not like do so. Sometimes you are trying to maintain a certain principle, but when you look at the broader society, including people up in the economic bracket, doing things that you know is not correct, then you start to feel like maybe I don't a fool if I want to stay down here, can barely pay this, can barely pay that, and even then people up the top, they do things. And so it is said in ancient texts, don't let the sins of the well-off become familiar to those who are not well-off, because if they see that you were the up the top there, they do certain thing, it then justifies, well, why they stay down here and stay poor when I hear Mr. So-and-so, which include our politicians. They do thing and they get way. And so it makes the moral climate very, very, very low. Anyway, we are going to take our next break, and when we come back, we will open the phone lines here at 280-5848 so that you can join in this very interesting conversation. This is WUB, Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes, of Friday morning, the 18th day of October 2024. Our guest, former ombudsman, and you ever say ombudsman, I'm glad you corrected and explained to me about that word. Of course, an attorney at law, a person that was involved in drafting the laws of Belize. I remember Mr. Dixon that you worked with, and also one of the early female. Here, Miss Golson was the first female, but you were in that group, either the second, the third, the second.
The second, and Lois.
All
Lois
right.
was the third.
Was the third. So we are honored to have her here, and the institutional memory, but more so this way of analyzing some of the current problems that we're facing. So we open the phone lines now for you to join the conversation at 280-5848, and we want you to be a part of this conversation, 280-5848. There's a responsibility of the state, but there's also a responsibility, as you pointed out, of parents and caregivers. Clearly, in some areas, we are not looking at the ideal nuclear family anymore, ma, pa, picnic. We've got now all kind of influences that define family. We have, over the years, come to accept this new definition of single mothers. And now it's single parents, because it's fathers sometimes being the one to raise the child. And the dynamics of the environment in which our children are growing up. Some are saying, what else do you expect? It's not that ideal of one ma and one pa, and they are doing what they're supposed to do. There are all kind of other influences that is affecting how that child is seeing the world. Can you comment a little, and really you've been commenting on it, but expound a little bit more on how do we deal with these challenges? Because we certainly can't put this genie back in the bottle and go back to how things were in the 40s and 50s, nor do we want to. But how do we, since we're dealing with social problems, some of which are criminal, and it is not only that, because, even the way we behave with one another, it's not the same, Jenny. We distrust one another, we talk about one another, we run against one another. We've got a lot of things, even when we don't commit crime, that makes the environment not as conducive to good behavior as it was in the early days. So I'm asking you to address state responsibility, sure, because you're like the head of the family when you're in government, but also personal responsibility to ensure that we have a better Belize.
To put it crudely, crassly, I think that more resources needs to be poured into improving, alleviating the social conditions. That should be priority, social conditions. Because if a single parent is working but is not earning adequate income, then they can't access the daycares that our government has seen fit. In the past, we didn't know about daycare and kindergarten, when I was a child, but then governments have evolved, knowledge has come. So my understanding is that persons are trained to operate a daycare, kindergarten, trained persons, but you have to pay. I don't know, I believe there might be a few that government sustains, but if you want your child to be in an environment where you are fairly certain that the way how that child should be taken care of and it is a daycare. But if you don't have the money, and that goes back now to wages, in a living wage, is it that persons are earning enough that they can put food on the table and also pay to send your child to a daycare or a kindergarten where you are fairly certain that what should be done is going to be done? And so you have to reach out to other persons, to relatives, and to anybody, to a grandmother who is already elderly and might even have the strength to lift the baby. But you have to do what you have to do. And so as you spoke, I am thinking about that. You know, the care that we give to our children is based on what you are able to do. I don't have the money. And then, you know, you look at the wage, you know, there was a fight to even get the amount that people used to get in an increase to what it is, which is no way what it should be. Exactly. And I guess the cry would be that we can't afford it, and you would probably have the pushback from the employers who will say, well, if I have to raise the wages, well then, but these are things which I think these are at the bottom of many of the problems that we face, and they need to be addressed, and I think that the consultation needs to be more. If the employers are saying what they are saying, well, let us grapple with that. Let us see if that is true. Because the quality of your life, the standard of your living has a lot to do with your children and what they do and don't do.
One of the things that have been pointed out is reparative justice is a responsibility of government, not just as a exercise for a month, 2 months, or 2 years, but has to be an ongoing process. The tax that is collected by government being put in the areas that, as you say, if we see these social services needed to be addressed, that we're not just addressing it in a small way when we know that there are persons who escape the tax payment and owe millions, if not billions of dollars that is not going into the coffers. And then government just tries to do what it can with what comes into the consolidated fund from those of us who cannot escape those tax payments. And so does the government then become more the same way that they are draconian when it comes to dealing with small people and arresting because they know to follow the law? How about the arrests of big people who we know are breaking the law by not paying? And look, the tax department knows this. I know, like, they don't know that such and such owes such and such. But for some reason, and I like to say, well, he pay off this one and he pay off that one there. But if it's criminal behavior that we are addressing at the base level with poor people, how is it that we don't have that same energy to deal with the tax dodgers who are breaking the law at the higher level? Especially when we know, rather than waiting for Taiwan to give us another amount of money, we know that money already exists, and we know the individuals there, and then in that tax concession, then just the thief, the revenue. How is it that we don't have that energy to arrest the people at the top, but we put all the energy to put that pressure upon poor people? How do we deal with that kind of contradiction? And I keep bringing up these various contradictions because they're blatant. They're right there. You see it, and you want to wonder. And then when politicians come to romance us and promise us and create manifestos that they are going to do these things, we see administration after administration kicking the obvious cans down the road. This is another of the things that they can't say because they tell me about it for 30 years. But administration after administration get so busy in the thick of small things that these big things keep getting put off. We aren't get today, you know. We aren't get today. We aren't get today. But and I can point out the names of some of these individuals. So many of them are foreign owners of property taxes, foreign owners that are not paying.
That are written off. You hear they're written off, and you hear it, and your mind just boggles. And now, I always say that when you have a people who are aware and are educated, and I don't mean the academic education, but they are educated as to how the country is being run and what is said, that it should be run in a particular way, but it isn't going like that. And even if they don't know that they are made aware of things, maybe things would change. But a lot of our people don't know. They are not aware. So when we hear over the media that property tax have been written off and things are written off and it's thousands of dollars, and you have certain organizations, I think once I heard that the PSU had offered to really go and collect the taxes that are owed. I don't know if that offer was ever taken up. And you wonder why. I mean, if you have people who are saying, I can help you, I can go there and get these taxes paid, but then you hear that it is written off, there is something wrong. And then that comes back to the power that persons have in order to do that. Now the state has that power, and they are not using it for the interests of the people. And I always tell my friends, you know, my chorus has always been, people don't care. They don't care. They don't care about people. Those who should care about this country don't, because they wouldn't do things like that. But then if people are not aware and they don't see how it affects their lives, that when these taxes are being written off, that it affects them, because money that could have been placed in the coffers that could get a single parent to have a higher salary to be able to put a child in the proper daycare, it is all linked up. But what people don't know. And so the defenders of rights and people who believe they know, I think we just have to keep on doing what we are doing. I know sometimes it is hard, you get discouraged, you feel like you are burnt out, and then you take a break maybe, but don't give up. So, awareness, that is what is needed, awareness. Yeah. You know, the young people don't even know how, a lot of them, I think, the majority, they don't know how they got here. Their ancestors, their history, they don't know about it. They don't know. I don't know if, when I was in school, I mean, you know, and that is like 100 years ago. When I was in high school, we did the slave trade. But never one day did we connect that to us.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
That was just something we did to pass an exam.
Just that interesting.
Never one day did we believe that we came from
these really slaves.
Enslaved people, that we have come down from that.
Yeah.
It is only afterwards, you know, if you get the opportunity to be exposed to higher education. You know, I went abroad and had professors like Trevor Monroe and those persons that really cause you to read the relevant literature and begin to connect the dots.
Indeed. Our numbers here is 280-5848. We just got a few more minutes before we thank our guests. I saw yesterday an interesting report. The Governor General was also there. Ms. Fuela Salam, highlighting the contribution of the Maya. Very important, a very beautiful display. But it seems that when we go, all right, here's our first call. Welcome, caller. Good morning.
Good morning, Nuri and Sharon. How are you?
Yeah, very good. This is Cynthia is here.
Sorry, Cynthia.
Yes, yes.
No.
Okay, I'm calling from Carazal, and my campaign at the moment for the whole discussion going forward is freedom from despots. Arise, Belizeans. Freedom from despots. Arise, Belizeans. And that is self-explanatory.
It is.
Thank you and have a good day.
All right, thank you also. Very good, indeed, indeed.
And I think that...
And that's our national anthem.
What she said is linked to awareness.
Yes.
Because what she said, how many people understand what she's getting at? Despots.
Yeah. Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
You say that to a young person, you know, maybe they don't understand what she is getting at.
Yes, yes.
But people are placed in position where they should be caring. They were placed there to do just that.
Yes.
And they are not doing it. You are a despot.
Yes.
You
indeed.
don't care, and you are responsible for even deaths. You know, they say words can kill. There is a saying, you have to be careful with what you say.
Oh, yes.
Words can kill. You can say things to somebody, and that person decides, I will take my life because I can't take it anymore. Bullying. Words can kill.
Indeed, it can indeed.
Well, despots cause deaths. Despots cause deaths.
And it's amazing, you know, as I said, I saw the Governor General being present at this unveiling of Maya civilization and history, and it looks very good. And unfortunately, the clip did not give you all of what Froilan was talking about in terms of the contribution of the Maya to what we are today, and to a large extent, an appreciation of how history affects us now is still not dealt with. We still use these things like, you know, like it's a trinket of the past. For example, if you read Angel Cal and his talk about Maya history, you get a more robust, these were fighters. If you talk to Garifuna historians about the contribution of the Garifuna, you get a sense of a warrior, somebody who supposedly deal, not just dance and punta and things, but you get a sense of, you know, and the youth is not attracted to just the dance. He want to turn the dance into punta rock. He want to take it to a next level and come who could gyrate the more. But what about the revolutionary spirit involved? And I say the same thing about the Creole. We don't talk about our enslavement in its connection with why we're there where we're there. And what were the kinds of systems that were put in place to dehumanize us and to bring us down to levels where we were just imitations of white man. We don't want to explore that section because you try to promote hate, you know. So we keep it as you know, broke down dance and rice and beans and so on and so on, and we keep it to Maya dance and this special dance and the Garifuna dance, and we know to relate it to what they go on in the streets, especially when it comes to the youth. So the youth is bored. Yes, you like to go through the museum and things like that. Yes, you wait for the November 19th, and yes, you wait for the 10th of September. But how does it relate to some of the issues going on the street today, and what have we inherited from that past? So there was a whole different approach that we clearly have to learn how to make. Anyway, we're at the end of the conversation.
Before,
I'll give you some last words.
Well, I mean, as you speak, I am sure you know that when you touched on what you just touched on, we can't fail to mention our friend Yaya.
Yes.
Yaya has been
trying to make
the connection.
Indeed.
And trying sometimes you think that she's alone.
Yes.
You know.
And many times, literally, she is.
And she is trying.
Yeah.
And I think she has had some successes, but there needs to be much more work done.
Yes, yes.
You know.
Yeah.
And I know she really tries. You know.
Yeah.
We have to give her credit.
Respect,
that
respect
she
to
has
her.
taken on what she regards as the interests of the blacks, and she makes no apologies for it. And she would say, do you see anybody putting the interests of the blacks out there? Yeah. So I am doing it, and I make no apologies. Yes. And I applaud her for that.
Respect to you, sister.
Yes.
We pray for her all the time,
Yes.
even though, you know, a lot of people criticize her, and she has to be really strong internally and spiritually.
And I think that she's getting stronger.
Yeah.
And she is approaching it in a slightly different manner, you know, because it depends on the way that you present what you want to present.
Indeed.
And I know that she's on a road that she will be presenting it in a different manner. Or she is.
And we need at that level of people engagement to support one another. And we have a habit in Belize, and I used to think that only one Creole thing, but really all of the cultures got this, criticizing you for small things and overseeing the big things that you're doing. And so we don't reach out to encourage each other. We rather get into small circles and criticize and pull. And so for persons like Yaya, and she's not the only one, really have some intestinal fortitude to stay the course. And don't be people who would look out for people to come and say, you're doing a good job. Because you know I get that. The accolades are many times very false. So you better believe in something. We don't require somebody to come and give you that encouragement. You got to get that. And that's why we believe in God, because it has to be a higher source
it has
that
to come
sustains you for it.
Yes.
And,
you alone can't do it.
Yeah, and to close off, it really returns to what you were saying in the very early statements you made about what is human right. Human rights, if I could put it what you said in a nutshell, is the principle of love for others what you love for yourself. Do unto others as you do to yourself. You don't want to see you and your son lock up in no SOE for 3 months. No matter what you say. I know all of them boys with me they in a SOE are criminals where they commit crime. Yes, some of them are. But a lot of them are victims of circumstances, are born into some circumstance where your picnic could have been born in. And so if you don't have that kind of love for your brother and sister, and you start to think, then that on me and my picnic and all that, then you've lost your way and we'll never get our society together. So Cynthia, make your last statement before you depart.
Well, thank you for having me. And I didn't know where the conversation would go.
Neither did I.
I just knew I would come and I would speak from the heart.
Yes.
And from what I know and remember, you know, because as you see, I am an elder now.
Oh, are you?
And so I don't really keep up with the law to know the current law, what the law is, but I do know how I feel and think about things.
Yes.
You know, and my last word to everyone who would like to promote and protect human rights is not to give up. Keep on doing. If it is even not as much as you used to do when you were young and youthful, you still do your part. Every little bit counts.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Cynthia Pitts. Few of us know her as Jenny. When she said Jenny, Cliff knew how to talk about because 2 hours away from George Street, so we know what we're talking about. But we really appreciate the way in which you presented a very thoughtful conversation this morning. I want to correct myself before we leave that I said mural stain earlier. and it's Muriel Ling. So Miss Ling, I know you listen to the program from New York. Excuse my giving you the wrong last name, Muriel Ling. Eddie Ling was her brother, as you know, attorney and ambassador Eddie Ling, who had a lot to do with the creation of the Consortium for Belizean Development, which personally I believe is still the best mechanism for diaspora involvement. We'll take our final break and we'll come back and we thank you for being with us this morning, the 18th day of October 2024. We want to thank our guest, Sister Cynthia Pitts, for being with us this morning, a very engaging conversation, and we thank her. We look forward to you again on next week, and of course, Mose returns here on Monday. We have to thank those in the background who are the real mainstay of this program. We're just the face on the front. But we thank, is it Tony Grant today? Yeah, Tony is here downstairs in simulcast. Miss Belaid is our MCO this morning. And of course, Mr. Cliff Lewis, and those who called in likewise. We thank you. Belizeans, stand strong and stand firm. Do the right thing. For now, we gone.
Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Another day is here. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. We gotta keep moving. Na 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 na. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Everybody gotta put their time in. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Voice our opinion and place your calling. WB. Be yourself, see yourself. This is a show by people. Belize our hopes so to needless reason. Nobody feel left out. It's the vibe we dealing. Let's find a solution. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love, respect, unselfishness and cooperation. That's how we need to build a strong nation. We are the people to make the changes. We are the changes. WB. And all the things that will free happen like I got blue skies. And nothing make people get victimized. Let's work together for better. We got to unite. Belize, yeah. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Another day is here. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. We gotta keep moving. Na 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 na. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Everybody gotta put their time in.